Hey everyone, and thanks for being here. I would say good morning or good afternoon or good evening, but I don't know when you're watching this because this is an online course and you can watch it basically whenever you want. Now, to me, that's one of the great things about online courses, that the time is so flexible. And while I see all of this as a benefit, my opponent does not. She feels that in person courses are superior to the online courses. And she made very good arguments as to why this is, but I happen to disagree with them. So, what I want to do now is walk you through her argument and then show you my side of that argument in order to convince you that online classes are better than in person classes. So, let's get started. My opponent broke down her argument into three major sections: benefits for students with with in-person courses, benefits for professors, and benefits for the administration. For students, she said four things. The first of which is that learning decreases in an online environment because of self motivation of students, and there is no set time for a class to be held. And while this is true that there is no set time and that some people do suffer from self motivation issues, that's not the problem of the online course. That's the problem of the student. The student should set a time aside each week, maybe twice a week, three times a week, whenever they feel that they can commit to a time, and do their course then. If they need that established sort of structure, they can give that to themselves. And self motivation may be a bit of a problem for some folks. But again, I feel like that is a problem that is with the student, not the online course. And you've heard this before, but part of the reason you go to the university is to prepare yourself for life after the university, whether that's graduate school or a career or both. So in those areas, once you're out of here, you will be required to be self-motivated in various circumstances. And the quicker you learn that, the better. And so, if nothing else, an online class will force you to learn that so that you will have that tool in your playbook for later in life. Second, in students, she said that distractions are higher at home or wherever you're living than they are in the classroom because of other people in the house being, loud or noisy neighbors, that kind of thing. And again, that's true. There could be more distractions, but there's no guarantee that there won't be distractions in the classroom. However, if you're recording yourself, for example, for this class, and it's not a completely silent background, I'm not going to dock points for that. And I don't think any professor would, or at least should. And I advise you that if this has happened to you, go talk to the chair of that department, because that's not something that I think you should be penalized for. So, really, the noises, the distractions, that kind of thing shouldn't affect your grades. However, maybe they affect your studying. And if that's the case, well, the library is still open if you are in the area. Most local communities have a library. But also, like the last point, prepare yourself to work through distractions. There will be distractions in everything else that you do in life. And learning to deal with those, to block those out, manage your attention is very important. And this can help you do that. Next, under students, my opponent said that conversation quality decreases because of the different style of a discussion that has to happen. There's not as much opportunity to learn from peers, that sort of thing. Now, my opponent makes the point, which I will emphasize, that the style of conversation is different, not that it's bad. And that's an important distinction to make. Now, when you think about not learning from your peers, not having the opportunities to interact in the same way you would in a classroom, I again say that's not the fault of the online course. That's the fault of a less than effective instructor. The instructor should use discussion boards so that everyone can see what everyone else is saying or doing. In our case, you can see those posts, watch those videos, and then it's up to you as the student to be self motivated to go in and participate in those discussion boards, or at least learn from them, read through them, watch the videos, that sort of thing. So the conversation style, as my opponent says, is different, but that doesn't make it bad. And then last, for students, she notes that lab courses are different and they're going to be harder to learn in. And this is true because you can't go in and touch and feel many things that you would probably do in a traditional lab setting. Now, I can tell you, as a student, when I was in school, I took anatomy twice. Failed it the first time. What are you going to do? But we go into the lab and you're touching bones and you're feeling the difference between different types of joints and that thing. So I see the usefulness, but the future is now, and the options that we have online with 3D imaging. Yeah, you can touch a bone in a lab, for example, but you go online, you can turn it in every direction you can imagine, and beyond that, you can see cross sections, you can look through it, you can see an animation of it. So again, I feel like the learning isn't less; it's just different in this new setting. So that wraps up the student section. She says that in person classes are better for professors for a couple of reasons. Three. One is that it's harder to hold students accountable. I disagree with that. I grade the same as I would in person, and I don't know what that means to hold them accountable. So if you don't turn in your work, you get a zero on that project. That's in the classroom or here. So I think that point is null. The second item she says is that it's hard to communicate with your students because they miss announcements. They skip lectures. They don't watch the videos. And we're going to come back to that idea. But for me, I post videos. I have announcements in the videos. I post announcements on the Blackboard site. So, I am communicating out, but are you receiving it is the real question. And are you responding to it? So again, that's not a problem for the online class. If you don't have a professor who's communicating with you regularly, that's their fault. And if you have a student who isn't receiving that communication, they're not checking it, that's their fault. And again, they need to get used to checking email religiously because, again, that's the way things will work in the future. Now, my opponent made a statement that shocked me. She said that students will skip lectures and not watch videos because they, quote, have no obligation, end quote, to do that. Well, when you sign up for a course, you have an obligation, if you want to pass, to do the work that's associated with the course. I see a syllabus as a sort of contract where I tell you the expectations and then you do your best to meet those expectations. So part of that is watching videos, checking announcements, going to synchronous lectures if that's your course setup. So I disagree with this point vehemently. And last in this section, my opponent says that it's harder to have group projects for professors. And I would say two things about that. One, good, if that's true. I think group projects are a terrible idea. Um, I especially think they're bad when you're judged or graded as a group. Maybe you've experienced that. But also, you're going to do online group work at work in the future. You're going to have virtual, groups as long as we can see in the future. I mean, you will have to experience this. You'll have to get used to working with people in this new digital environment. Next, my opponent confused me a little. She stuck in sort of the parents and roommates are uncomfortable being quiet in their own homes. Um, I would just say simply this: two things. One, it doesn't fit there to make that argument at this point. And two, if you live there too, it's your home too. So you should feel comfortable having class when you need to. Now, the last point that my opponent made was that online classes are worse for the administration because they're losing money. And here's her thought process on this. Grand Valley's losing money because there's no reason to be on campus, so there's no reason to buy parking passes, room and board, or eat, or go to the stores on campus, that kind of thing. And while the parking, room and board, and stores, it's true, they're actually saving money through this. If you'll remember, they raised your tuition, right? Grand Valley raised your tuition, I think 3% in the middle of the pandemic for you to come back for this semester. So they're bringing in more money. Don't feel like you're alone on this. They cut my income. I didn't get a pay cut, but I was told, not given the option to, told I would teach an additional class at no extra compensation. So now I'm making $5,000 a class for them, and so is every other tenure track faculty in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences anyway. Plus, the classrooms are dark for the most part. There's not a need to heat or cool these rooms. They're saving a ton of money on energy costs. Security problems are down, so they don't have to have, this extra sense of security going on because we're not here. Imagine when winter comes, if we shut down campus altogether, the snow removal, well, that'll save a ton of money. So, I see where you're coming from with this idea that the administration would make more money if you all were on campus. But in reality, that's just not the case. So, my opponent made great points. I just think they're misguided. One, students actually benefit from online education. Second, professors benefit from online education. It's not much different, and we can do it on our own time as well. And the administration benefits from this financially, and that's their job is to make the most money they can for the university. And that's what they're doing, like it or not. So I appreciate the argument. I appreciate you listening, and I urge a vote for the affirmative side or negative, whatever the hell side I'm on. Have a good day.